Hi, I'm Davi, and thank you so much for clicking on today's video. If you're new, I'm a fourth-year computer science student with a minor in cognitive science, and this video is about behavioral questions. So this is the second part of the video. If you haven't seen part one, please go check it out. It'll be linked down below, and I will be just going through some behavioral questions as if I was in an interview, and just giving some advice on how I would answer them. So honestly, let's just dive back into the questions. So I will be using the Muse site, which will be linked down below, and today I'll be answering the second question from each section. There are 6 questions about teamwork, client-facing skills, ability to adapt, time management skills, communication skills, and motivation and values. So in part 1, I answered the first question from each of these sections, and in this video, I'll be answering the second part. And so before I start answering the questions, I think the most important tip that I can give to anyone answering behavioral questions in an interview is if they ask you a question about a scenario and you have personally never lived through that, then make it up. Make it up. They don't know you. They don't know your life. They're trying to know you better. They're trying to know you more. So if you're saying that, I used to ride motorcycles and all of this great stuff, I have never touched a motorcycle in my life. But they don't know that. They're just, wanting to know more about you and your ability to adapt and all of these great stuff. So that is the tip that I can give for this. So the way that I'll be answering these questions is first I will read it, and then I'll personally, think about it, thought process, and then I'll just go into answering as if I was physically, actually in an interview. I haven't read all of these questions, so I'll be reading them the first time with you. And so the first question: give me an example of a time you faced a conflict while working on a team. How did you handle that? So the example that comes into mind was when in my freshman year, I had to work on a team to complete a computer science project. And there was only 3 of us. And I just vividly remember that one of the team members just didn't do any of his work. He just didn't do any of his part. And this was just really annoying because the project was really big. And it was also the first project that I had in computer science. And it was just a little bit frustrating because I didn't know everything. And so I was, didn't feel like it was my responsibility to do the entire project by myself or with the other girl that was with me. The both of us were frustrated because it was a lot of work. And so every time we tried to contact him, he wouldn't reply. He wouldn't come to the meetings with us. He just essentially didn't do his part. And it got to the point that it's either I do all of it or, I tell the professor or just something like that, where it was just it was just becoming a problem because then he was like, my name needs to be on here. And I'm just why is your name going to be on the project, if you didn't do anything, And so the way that I navigated that issue was that one of the days we were in class, I went up to him and I essentially told him, your name will not be on this project if you do not help us and you do not do your part. And he was like, but why? But I'm here, I'm doing it. And I'm like, no, you're not. You literally haven't done anything. It's literally me and this other girl are doing everything. And so I will literally tell the professor that you haven't done a single thing. You haven't come to any of the meetings with us. And he finally, stepped up and did his part. And I just think that I don't know what he was going through personally or in his life or if he was going through anything at all. But it was important for me to be direct and confident in how I navigated that issue because, we're not here for, free floaters and stuff like that. It's a computer science project. We're all trying to, learn here and thrive. So you need to step up and do your part. And so that's how I, was direct and blunt with him. And he did. He went to the meetings after that. He communicated more and we eventually, turned the project in and got an A on it. So that was really great. And I'm happy the way I handled that conflict. And hopefully, he's thriving now in whatever he's doing in the rest of school. Cool. That was question numero uno. Right. Question 2. Give me an example of a time when you did not meet a client's expectations. What happened and how did you attempt to rectify the situation? So the example that comes into mind was when I was in high school, I used to volunteer at a nursing home to teach them how to use their technology. And I remember that there was a older woman one time who needed some help. She needed some help setting up her phone. She just got a new iPhone at the time and she didn't understand how to use it. And so I was, leading her through all of the process of setting it up, downloading some apps and things like that. And what happened was she was trying to put in her password. And I was telling her the password because she had previously told me what it was. And essentially she got locked out of her phone, and then she tried it again and got locked out of her phone again for like 5 hours. And so she got a little frustrated with me because it was like, I was the person that's supposed to know it all and know everything, and I didn't meet her expectation of teaching her how to use her phone because she was locked out. And I was just like a little bit frustrated because it wasn't really my fault because she told me her own password incorrectly. So that was what happened there. But I'm not gonna like tell the person, or I didn't tell her that because I think that it wasn't the time or moment for that. So all I did was like apologize, and I taught her how, this is what your password was and this is what you had told me, and I navigated that more calmly and more efficiently. And so the next time I went back to volunteer, I went up to her and asked her if she got everything figured out and if she needed any more help. And she proceeded to apologize to me and say that she was wrong in the way that she treated me and how she was yelling at me previously, and that now she would be blessed to have my help in setting up her phone. And so I thought that was really great because in the moment she was very upset with me because I didn't meet her expectations of teaching her how to use this phone. And I just took that all that anger that she had at me, and I just went back home and tried to calm down and everything. And then I went back and tried to make sure that she was okay and make sure that she actually learns how to use it, because I think that's important, and that was my job in the first place. And so we had beautiful conversations after that. She told me about her family, and I helped her with her phone, and she now is thriving, knowing how to use her phone now. Describe a time where your team or company was undergoing some change. How did that impact you, and how did you adapt? So at my university, I am currently an RA, and so I think it's a very fulfilling position. And within the first semester, I became very, very close with my boss. She was an amazing human being, and she was just like always helping me with everything, all of my programs that I had to put on and all of this other stuff. She was just so adamant in helping me with everything, and I just truly, absolutely like adored her. She was just my favorite person. And maybe like a week before we were supposed to move back in for winter break, she told us that she was leaving. And that was like really, really difficult for me because I reapplied in the same place because I wanted to continue to work with her, and she was leaving. And then also like she wasn't leaving, in a month. She was leaving in like 2 days from when she said. And that was really difficult for me because when she left, the person that took over her position was her boss, and he was much more difficult. He was much more tedious and meticulous with all of the stuff that I was doing. He was constantly asking me, how are these residents, or how are you communicating with them, and other things like that, and just very anal about all of these things. And that was just like really difficult because it was just like the way that I was like navigating my hall and all of the things I was doing the first semester was completely different now, and how I had to navigate the second semester. And then COVID happened, and so that was also just even more difficult. It was really an opportunity for me to learn how to adapt and thrive because it was truly difficult. Navigating how to continue to connect with residents through COVID, with everyone being at home, and then also me having a completely new boss. But I was able to do it. I was able to successfully have beautiful programs, and my residents, some of them actually became RAs, and I think they like to tell me that it was because of me, which I think is beautiful. I was able to impact them and bless their lives in a way that they wanted to also take that responsibility to, impact other people as well, which I think is really beautiful. So that is the example that comes into mind for me. Boom. All right, next one. Describe a long-term project that you managed. How did you keep everything moving along in a timely manner? So in my web programming class, we had a long-term project where we had to essentially create a website. And in this class specifically, we didn't have like deliverables along the way. We only had 2. So it was essentially 1 for the front end, and at the end of the semester for back end. So you just had like 2.5 months to do front end at your own pace, and then 2.5 months to do back end at your own pace. And so I was on a team with 2 other people, and so like that was kind of difficult because we were also trying to manage all of our other classes, but we also didn't want to pull up and be like, oh my goodness, this whole front end side of this project is due in a week. Now we have to sit here and grind out and spend 20 hours a day trying to finish it. And so the way that we specifically navigated that situation was that we set weekly checkpoints for ourselves within our own team. We were like, okay, the HTML code needs to be done by the first month. And then we split down even more. We were like, okay, the first page of this HTML code needs to be done this week. The second page of this HTML code needs to be done this week, and just things like that. Now after HTML, we were like, okay, now we need to add the CSS onto it and do it like that. And so we split it up in a way that was, actually like achievable for us as a group, but then also we were just able to do the project ahead of time and not be stressed out about, oh, okay, now, as I said before, this whole project is due in a week, Cool. All right. That actually did happen. That was dope. So I'm going to change this question a bit. I don't know what a resident technical expert, but I'm going to talk about a time where I was just an expert in general, and I had to, make sure everyone understood what I was saying. That's how I'm going to answer the question. Okay. So specifically with my Nike internship, we had to have final presentations. And this final presentation was just to everyone within the company that wanted to come. So it could be people outside of my team, but also people from the internship, people from, other interns and things like that. And so the stuff that I was working on was very technical. Like the words that I could have been using were really big. And, not everyone would understand that, specifically if you're not, not even in that space of technology. Because some people like some people on the business side and other things like that and marketing side were like attending my presentation, and I didn't want them to feel, any less than someone else because they didn't understand what I was saying. And so the way that I navigated that was that I was trying to, if I said a word that maybe people wouldn't understand, for example, like a data analyst, I like gave a definition essentially. I was like, okay, I worked closely with a data analyst, and that means I was, like writing code, and I was like working with machine learning and the data and stuff like that. And so I tried to essentially define words in my mind that if I was like outside trying to listen in and I didn't know anything about what was going on, that they would be able to understand. They were like, oh, okay, data analysis, you're analyzing data, but you're specifically writing code on data and machine learning and things like that. And that can be applicable to like literally anything. If you're just trying to give a presentation on something and, you want to not dumb it down, but like essentially, make it a bit less complex for anyone to understand what you're talking about, alongside, the experts in the field that you're also talking to. So, yeah. Cool. The last question. Describe a time when you saw some problem and took the initiative to correct it rather than waiting for someone else to do it. Okay. So a few summers ago, I worked at a movie theater, and I was a cook on that. And I just remember coming in for my shift, starting at like 10 or something, and I realized that everything was dirty on the station. Like the people the night before didn't clean anything, they didn't restock anything, and they also didn't do it for any of the other stations because there were 4 stations in the kitchen. And I was like one of the first people to go in there. And I realized that like, maybe I can, would have to do my station at least, because, I would have to cook and, get everything in order for the food for the start of I would have to do at least my station and clean up my station because, I would still have to cook and clean and make sure that everything was in order to make orders and stuff like that. But I also realized that the other people hadn't, shown up yet. And I just took it upon myself to just like clean everything. So I cleaned everyone's station. I restocked everyone's station. And I didn't get any praise for that because, when people did come in, they didn't even realize because they thought, that the people the night before, did what they needed to do when they didn't. It's okay. You don't need to take praise or recognition for everything that you did. But that is the thought that comes into mind for me, was just like taking the initiative to clean not just my own station but just everyone's station because they want to come into a space that things should have been done, and when they're not, it's kind of annoying because you cleaning all of that stuff was just a lot, but then also having to restock, and it wasn't a lot of time because the first movie was at like 12 and it was currently like when I got there was 10. And, just prepping, it can be a lot. And so I let them, just prep what they needed to do, and just clean the station for them. And that's the example that comes to mind for me. All right, boom. All right, we got it. So thank you so much for watching part 2. Part 3 will be up next week, and I'll be answering the third question from all of these sections. And yeah, thank you so much for watching the video. I hope that it brings you some value and helps you, answer your questions if you are difficult, or answer these questions if you have any difficulty with them, and hopefully to give you some tips on how to answer behavioral questions for yourself. And so, yeah, thank you so much for watching the video, and I hope you have a beautiful and blessed day.